Hello, and welcome to The Knowing Show. I am your host, Christene Marie. We are going to dive right into today's lesson. Thank you all so much for joining me, and happy Father's Day to all the fathers. It is June 21st as we read lesson 172, and I am so grateful for those of you who have joined me this morning. Now let's go ahead and hop over to lesson 172. We are in the middle of a review section. For those of you who are brand new with us, we are reading A Course in Miracles. It's a workbook that we started the 1st of January, and frankly, I started it for my own sake and wanted to keep myself accountable. And so we're going live every single day, and the conversations have been so good. Today, we are actually kind of continuing a conversation we've had over the last 2 days, just surrounding defending ourselves and taking offense easily. And what does it look like to wear armor? And what does it look like to live in freedom? So we are continuing that theme based on today's lesson. But first, we'll just do a quick review, and then we'll do a deeper dive into one particular lesson. Lesson 172, God is but love, and therefore so am I. And the recap lessons are lesson 153, in my defenselessness, my safety lies. Lesson 154, I am among the ministers of God. And we're going to read deeper into lesson 153. In my defenselessness, my safety lies. You who feel threatened by this changing world, its twists of fortune and its bitter jests, its brief relationships and all the gifts it merely lends to take away again, attend this lesson well. The world provides no safety. It is rooted in attack, and all its gifts of seeming safety are illusory deceptions. It attacks and then attacks again. No peace of mind is possible where danger threatens thus. The world gives rise but to defensiveness. For threat brings anger, and anger makes attack seem reasonable, honesty provoked, and righteous in the name of self-defense. Yet is defensiveness a double threat, for it attests to weakness and sets up a system of defense that cannot work. Now are the weak still further undermined, for there is treachery without and still a greater treachery within. The mind is now confused and knows not where to turn to find escape from its imaginings. It is as if a circle held it fast, wherein another circle bound it, and another one in that, until escape no longer can be hoped for nor obtained. Attack, defense, defense, attack becomes the circles of the hours and the days that bind the mind in heavy bands of steel and iron overclad, returning but to start again. There seems to be no break nor ending to the ever-tightening grip of the imprisonment upon the mind. Defenses are the costliest of all prices which the ego would exact. In them lies madness in a form so grim that hope of sanity seems but to be an idle dream, beyond the possible. The sense of threat the world encourages is so much deeper and so far beyond the frenzy and intensity of which you can conceive that you have no idea of all the devastation it has wrought. You are its slave. You know not what you do in fear of it. You do not understand how much you have been made to sacrifice, who feel its iron grip upon your heart. You do not realize what you have done to sabotage the holy peace of God by your defensiveness. For you behold the Son of God as but a victim to attack by fantasies, by dreams, and by illusions he made, yet helpless in their presence, needful only of defense by still more fantasies and dreams by which illusions of his safety comfort him. Defenselessness is strength. It testifies to recognition of Christ in you. Perhaps you will recall the text maintains that choice is always made between Christ's strength and your own weakness, seen apart from him. Defenselessness can never be attacked because it recognizes strength, so great attack is folly, or a silly game a tired child may play when he becomes too sleepy to remember what he wants. Defensiveness is weakness. It proclaims you have denied the Christ and come to fear his Father's anger. What can save you now from your delusion of an angry God, whose fearful image you believe you see at work in all the evils of the world? What but illusions could defend you now? What it is but illusions that you fight? We will not play such childish games today, for our true purpose is to encourage the world, and we would not exchange for foolishness the endless joy our function offers us. We would not let our happiness slip by because a fragment of a senseless dream happened to cross our minds, and we mistook the figures in it for the Son of God, its tiny instant for eternity. We look past dreams today and recognize that we need no defense because we are created unassailable, without all thought or wish or dream in which attack has any meaning. Now we cannot fear, for we have left all fearful thoughts behind, and in defenselessness we stand secure, serenely certain of our safety now, sure of salvation, sure we will fulfill our chosen purpose as our ministry extends its holy blessing throughout the world. Be still a moment and in silence think how holy is your purpose, how secure your rest, untouchable within its light. God's ministers have chosen that the truth be with them. Who is holier than they? Who could be surer than his happiness is fully guaranteed? And who could be more mightily protected? What defense could possibly be needed by the ones who are among the chosen ones of God, by his election and their own as well? It is the function of God's ministers to help their brothers choose as they have done. God has elected all, but few have come God has elected all, but few have come to realize his will is but their own. And while you fail to teach what you have learned, salvation waits, and darkness holds the world in grim imprisonment. Nor will you learn that light has come to you and your escape has been accomplished, for you will not see the light until you offer it to all your brothers. As they take it from your hands, so will you recognize it as your own. Salvation can be thought of as a game that happy children play. It is designed by one who loves his children, who would teach their fearful toys with joyous games, which teach them that the game of fear is gone. His game instructs in happiness because there is no loser. Everyone who plays must win, and in his winning is the gain to everyone insured. The game of fear is gladly laid aside when children come to see the benefits salvation brings. You who have played that you are lost to hope, abandoned by your father, left alone in terror in a fearful world, made mad by sin and guilt, be happy now. That game is over. Now a quiet time has come in which we put away the toys of guilt, lock our quaint and childish thoughts of sin forever from the pure and holy minds of heaven's children and the Son of God. We pause but for a moment more to play our final happy game upon this earth. And then we go to take our rightful place where truth abides and games are meaningless. So the story ended. Let this day bring the last chapter closer to the world, that everyone may learn the tale he reads of terrifying destiny, defeat of all his hopes, his pitiful defense against a vengeance he cannot escape. He is but his own deluded fantasy. God's ministers have come to waken him from the dark dreams this story has evoked in his confused, bewildered memory of his distorted tale. God's son can smile at last on learning that it is not true. Today we practice in a form we will maintain for quite a while. We will begin each day by giving our attention to the daily thought as long as possible. 5 minutes now becomes the least we give in preparation for a day in which salvation is the only goal we have. 10 would be better, 15 better still. And as distraction ceases to arise to turn us from our purpose, we will find that half an hour is too short to spend with God. Nor will we willingly give less at night in gratitude and joy. Each hour adds to our increasing peace as we remember to be faithful to the will we share with God. At times, perhaps a minute, even less, will be the most that we can offer as the hour strikes. Sometimes we will forget. At other times, the busyness of the world will close on us, and we will be unable to withdraw a little while and turn our thoughts to God. Yet when we can, we will observe our trust as ministers of God. In holy remembrance of our mission and his love, we will sit quietly by and wait on him and listen to his voice and learn what he would have us do the hour that is yet to come, while thanking him for all the gifts he gave us in the one gone by. In time, with practice, you will never cease to think of him and hear his loving voice guiding your footsteps into quiet ways where you will walk in true defenselessness. For you will know that heaven goes with you, nor would you keep your mind away from him a moment, even though your time spent in offering salvation to the world. Think, think you, he will not make this possible for you who choose to carry out his plan for the salvation of the world and yours. Today, our theme is our defenselessness. We clothe ourselves in it as we prepare to meet the day. We rise up strong in Christ and let our weakness disappear as we remember that his strength abides in us. We will remind ourselves that he remains beside us throughout the day and never leaves our weakness unsupported by his strength. We call upon his strength each time we feel the threat of our defenses undermine our certainty of purpose. We will pause a moment as he tells us, I am here. Your practicing will now begin to take the earnestness of love to help to keep your mind from wandering from its intent. Be not afraid nor timid. There can be no doubt that you will reach your final goal. The ministers of God can never fail because the strength and love and peace that shine from them to all their brothers come from him. These are his gifts to you. Defenselessness is all you need to give him in return. You lay aside but what was never real to look on Christ and see his sinlessness. Y'all, I keenly remember reading this lesson. Gosh, it must have been a month ago at this point. I was actually in LA while I was attending an event, and I read this, and it just struck me to my core because it starts out effectively, well, what even is defensiveness? What does it mean to be defenselessness? And isn't that actually exposing ourselves for vulnerability? Isn't that actually the most terrifying thing, to leave ourselves defenseless? And so I want to return to kind of an earlier comment she made around her kind of bringing awareness to what does she mean by defensiveness. And then we'll continue on with today's just dialogue around this lesson. Yet is defensiveness a double threat, for it attests to weakness and sets up a system of defense that cannot work. The mind is now confused and knows not where to turn to find escape from its imaginings. The weak are further undermined, for there is treachery without and still a greater treachery within. Y'all, the thing that's so interesting about defensiveness, when we start getting defensive, and defensiveness, I like that she used this analogy of an ironclad gate. It's like we start putting up these walls, we start putting up these gates to try to keep people out because we feel threatened. And whenever we feel threatened, what that really reveals is that we feel weak. We feel powerless, or we feel like we are less than, or we are decreased in the amount of strength that we can bring to the situation that person brings at us. Whether we think that they have more power, or maybe we feel like we're equal and thus we're not strong enough to beat them for sure. And there's a lack of certainty in our ability to contend. And y'all, it's really interesting. Defensiveness can take a shape. It can take so many shapes, but so often our defensiveness kicks in as a result of our nervous system going into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And so I want to talk about, there's the kind of the spiritual component of defensiveness. There's the emotional component of defensiveness, but then there's also an emotional component. On the Knowing Show, we talk about our four intelligences: intellectual, emotional, spiritual, and physical. Our physical body is one of our greatest defenses, because ever since we've really been in existence as a human species, we've been on this fight for survival. And our body, when our body is at 40% capacity being used up, it's like we've used up 40% of energy, mental, emotional, physical. Our body actually starts shutting down. David Goggins writes this in his book. And what he does is he actually shares this story to make this point across. So I'll actually share the story. He was in boot camp, but it wasn't just regular boot camp. I think it was to become a Navy SEAL. So he was in Navy SEAL training, and they're laying in the water, effectively getting waterboarded on the, Pacific Pacific coast, the Pacific Ocean. And so they're laying down in like literally the water, and the water keeps coming up, and they have no idea how long that they've got to do this for. And it's day 1, I think. And they have another couple, I think it's like 20 days left of this. And when you think of 20 days, how many hours are in a day? He's like, how can I endure I cannot endure this. So he's laying there having the water splash up in his face, and he's just starting to get overwhelmed by how long he's got to be suffering this. And so 24 hours in a day for 20 days, that's 480 hours. And so he's laying there just thinking, I can't do this for 400 hours. Like, this is insane. As the water keeps coming up into his face, so he starts getting overwhelmed in his mind, and his body starts shutting down. He was only at 40% capacity. And at 40% capacity, our body goes into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. And when our nervous system goes into that kind of activated, I guess you could say activated state, our cortisol raises and our stress hormones kick in. But what's so interesting is that when that happens, the oxygen doesn't flow to the parts of our brain, to the full parts of our brain. That's why when we take deep breaths, we're allowing oxygen to go everywhere in our brain and kind of like access every part. And what's interesting is that when our cortisol increases and our breathing gets shortened, the oxygen gets cut off to our short-term memory. Our short-term memory is what brings us to the present moment. And so what ends up happening is that when we don't have oxygen going there, the past feels very real, or even this anticipation for the future and how dreadful it's going to be, rather than just staying here in this present moment of like, oh, I can do this right now. I can't anticipate being able to do this for 400 hours or 20 days. And so one of the things that he also said in his book was that the times that the Navy SEALs would have the greatest dropout rate was when they would be standing on the beach and they would run back and forth from one point to another. That's all they did. But they didn't know when it was going to end. So the lack of certainty puts our body into survival mode. It freaks us out. We go into high cortisol and we lose access to our short-term memory that brings us here in the present moment, just taking, and so the reason why I say the present moment is because his trick was to just breathe, and he called it the 1 second rule. I can do this for a second. I can do this for a second. I can do this for a second. Rather than, how am I going to do this for 400 hours? How am I going to do this for 20 days? Our body, our brain, and our soul and our spirit does not have grace for tomorrow. And it actually doesn't have much capacity for even 30 minutes from now. We are supposed to be focusing on the here and now. And so when our body kicks into gear and starts getting defensive, it might be defensive against a person. It might be defensive against a situation. It might be defensive around an idea of something that has never happened yet. So what's so important is to learn these kind of little mini tactics and mini hacks for engaging with stress so that we are the ones in the driver's seat of our life. It's not our body in the driver's seat or fear in the driver's seat, but rather it's you and me as we were uniquely created to be, where we allow for the mind, the body, the soul, the spirit to come in and say, hey, by the way, this seems like a stressful situation. You might want to get out of it. And then we get to decide. Y'all, can you imagine how many of those Navy SEAL guys that dropped out of their own accord because they just mentally couldn't take running back and forth? It wasn't hard. They were running back and forth, but it was a lack of certainty that their body started shutting down. Their brain tells them, get out, but they don't know how to master their brain. And that's so much of what this training is meant to do. It's meant to reveal those who do not have a strong mind. And so I can only imagine those men who have made it halfway through or even towards the end of Navy SEALs training, and then they self-eliminated because their mind wasn't strong enough to deal with the uncertainty of simply just running back and forth. You know, we need to cultivate a strong mind, not so that we can go become a Navy SEAL, but so that when our bodies start shutting down, whether it's we hear the news of a death, and I got to tell you, there is nothing worse than getting that phone call. So when our bodies start shutting down, when we get a news of a phone call, or maybe we lose our job and we are driving home to face the family, and like, how are we going to communicate this? when maybe we've got an illness that we can't cure and we don't know what's wrong and we're just in constant pain. I was talking to somebody about this yesterday where they're like, it's just easier to end it. Y'all, what do we tell our bodies? What do we tell our minds? Because our mind is operating under survival. Our mind can't tell the difference between the past and the present and the future. So this whole concept of where you place your attention is where you place your energy is so important, because our brain is going to think that that's real. So if we're placing our attention on 20 minutes from now or 20 days from now, and we're getting that, we will self-induce overwhelm. We will self-induce stress. So much of the stress and reasons for defensiveness that we experience in the world is self-induced because of where we're placing our attention. So this concept of mastering our minds is probably one of the most important pursuits that we can have. Last night, I found myself just really getting upset at somebody. There was a rumor started that was just horrible. And it's 100% a rumor. It's rare sometimes to know 100% that that's a rumor. And you're like, no, that's absolutely a lie. And I found myself getting upset. And then I realized as I was going to sleep, I was lying there and I was like, you know what? That person has power over me for so long as my emotions are oriented towards this person, and I'm feeling upset and I'm dwelling on it and I'm thinking about it and I'm imagining and wondering and questioning. And the more attention that I give to something that is upsetting, the more power it has over me. And what's so interesting, y'all, is that the way that we get free from that is she talks about it exactly on how to do that. So I want to keep moving through here. Defenselessness is strength. It testifies to the recognition of Christ in you. Perhaps you will recall the text maintains that choice is always made between Christ's strength and your own weakness, seen apart from him. Defenselessness can never be attacked because it recognizes strength so great, attack is folly, or a silly game a tired child may play if he becomes too sleepy to remember what he wants. Y'all, defenselessness is our greatest strength, because what that does is that signifies something. Defenselessness itself isn't the thing. What it does is that it reveals where we're rooted, grounded, and where we're standing on. Instead of standing on our own foundation of sand of like, I got it, I'm going to defend myself, I'm going to protect myself and keep myself safe, driven by fear. Rather, I'm actually going to switch my foundation entirely, and I'm going to go stand on that of God. I'm going to trust the vision of God, looking at the world through his eyes. I'm going to trust his identity, what he says about me. I'm going to stand on that. I'm going to stand on the truth, the capital T truth of what he declares and what he says. So I'm going to stand on a completely different foundation, one made of rock that is unassailable. And this is what I love. It says, defenselessness can never be attacked because it recognizes strength so great, attack is folly. It's like all of a sudden the flaming darts that are being shot at your straw house, you move to a rock foundation in a rock home, and you look at these little fiery darts and they just bounce off and you're like, oh, that's silly. It just all of a sudden perspective completely changes. And we're unassailable. Like, it does not even make a difference what that person does, what that environment induces. We've got it. It's like all of a sudden we are an adult. Y'all, this is why this whole concept, and people talk about this a lot, this is a very familiar concept of parenting yourself. Because for so many of us, and I talked about this a little bit in the last few minutes, where our brain can't tell the difference between the past, present, and future. So if we're afraid of the future, so often what we're afraid of is something in our past that we're projecting onto the future. Because otherwise, our mind cannot be afraid of that which it does not know. So what it means is that we will actually put the past, we know that, onto the future, and thus we fear it. But if we have no context, no idea, no analogy for which to then project onto the future, then there's no reason to fear. Anytime we're afraid, we're drawing from something of the past, or even something of the uncertainty. Remember, we were talking about the Navy SEALs. They drop out because they're uncertain and therefore they fear. But they're projecting how long they've been running as something eternal. I'm going to have to do, I have no idea how long I'm going to have to do this. So it is still something known, but it is the uncertainty. I heard this one time that people will choose certainty, even if it's certain misery, over that which is uncertain. There's a reason why people go back to the abuser, because they know it. It's familiar. There's a comfortability in being able to predict. So when you move into the unknown, it's actually, so it can be crippling for people because they don't know what to expect. So when we move from kind of this weak foundation of, I'm going to set up, keep the ironclad gates about me to keep myself safe. I'm going to stand on my own foundation of everything I can do to keep myself safe, predicated in fear over what could be, over the past that I'm projecting, over the uncertainty of God only knows. And then we start imagining and making things up. And then we move over to this stone rock house, this firm foundation. All of a sudden, we're no longer living in our imagination because we know what's true. We're fixating on what's true. We're placing our attention and thus our energy on that which is true. But the question is, do we actually have an open eye line, sight line to the truth? Is our ear attuned to the truth? Or are we really corrupted from the past, from our own fear of the uncertain? So there's these things that we need to kind of consider as we consider, or as we ask ourselves this question, which is, what are you defensive about? Where are your kind of like, and this is a question for every single one of us, where are my open areas for attack? And usually for me, it has to do with people I love. That's where I'm most vulnerable. That's where I'm most weak. I just want to jump here in the chat. Goose Hunter, good morning. I'm glad to see you. In the breath lies the hidden power of our Creator, who breathed into each one of us a part of his divine omnipotence. Oh, wow. That is beautifully, beautifully stated. Benji Franks, good morning. Mumu, good morning. Eric, thank you. Thank you for joining. I'm glad you're here. Jay-Z, good morning. The casino always wins. Good morning, True King. Hello. Aitiki, good morning. Y'all, I'm so bummed that I need to jump off. I actually, random enough on a Sunday, I have a business meeting. I'm interviewing somebody. So I'm going to jump off, but it was so wonderful to be with you all this morning. Thank you so much for joining. Joseph, I'm so glad to see you. Bernie, good morning. Ahmed, good morning. AJ. All right, y'all have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful Father's Day. I will see you all tomorrow, 9